The instrument remembers who carved its throat. Close your eyes. The rasp of a scraper. One slow bow across a horsehair string, and a note that seems to inhale the workshop. I hear that note, and I know a hand, a village, a long summer of practice behind it. Quiet stones, loud stories. Welcome to Ancient Echoes, KH. I'm Samnang Bradley. Today, we follow tuned hands, the Luthiers, roneat makers, and bamboo-flute artisans who give Khmer music its voice. We'll sit in workshops, stand by riverbanks, and listen as materials become music. I'll be careful not to give step-by-step blueprints. We describe methods, not measurements, and I'll point listeners to ethical resources in the show notes.
I'm Sovin. As we go, I'll add context on how these instruments fit into ritual, ensemble life, and the networks that support makers. Expect close listening, practical tips, and a look at how apprenticeship passes knowledge from older hands to younger ones. First, a short context corner. The bowed fiddles, often lead melodic lines in small ensembles and are essential in certain ritual pieces. The roneat family, keyed wooden xylophones, provide the shimmer and rhythmic skeleton, and the bamboo flutes thread through markets, temples, and dances, sometimes solo, sometimes woven into chamber music. Each instrument carries specific choices about wood, tuning, and finish that shape timbre and durability.
The ethics are important. Makers source wood and horsehair carefully. Some materials are regulated, so we talk about sourcing in broad terms, and we won't publish detailed construction schematics. We also made sure to obtain permissions for the recordings you'll hear and to discuss fair compensation with everyone we met.
Now, a workshop. I'm standing beneath a corrugated roof where sunlight finds dust in slow ribbons. The master luthier, Lee, lowers a block of wood onto his lap and runs a scraper along the belly of a trough. The rasp sounds like rain on clay. He tells me, in Khmer, that the wood remembers where it grew. Riverside mango, deep dry teak, and that memory shapes the note.
Samnang, when Lee says the wood remembers where it grew, what does he mean technically and culturally?
He means two things at once. Technically, pore structure, density, and grain affect resonance. That's the acoustic side. Culturally, certain woods have long been preferred because master players expect a particular voice from them. Older makers will refuse quick substitutions because the instrument's behavior in an ensemble is part acoustic truth, part inherited preference. Lei says apprenticeship taught him to listen for that truth. A young tro should sing like its ancestors.
Lai lifts the soundpost with a tiny pick, the wood flexing like a living thing. He hums as he tests the belly, listening for overtones. He told me he learned from his teacher by copying not plans but gestures, how a thumb presses, where a rasp pauses. He said, smiling, that sometimes the wood tells him where to stop.
That idea, copying gestures rather than plans, is central to apprenticeship. It keeps techniques embodied rather than schematic. It also explains why we avoid instruction manuals in this episode. The craft is transmitted through presence and care, not a set of measurements.
In a smaller courtyard workshop 3 towns over, I met Dara, a younger maker, experimenting with reclaimed wood and new adhesives to adapt instruments for urban ensembles. He was nervous to show me his modified finish. The look of concentrated possibility on his face was impossible to miss. And then he played a short bow stroke that surprised even himself with its warmth. He explained, plainly, that urban players want instruments that respond quickly in amplified spaces, and that some materials can help without betraying the instrument's soul.
How does Dara balance tradition and innovation? That's a question I hear often from students of material culture.
He balances it by testing in ensembles and asking elders to listen. He doesn't claim invention is final. He calls it a conversation with teachers and players. He actually asked his teacher to play his new tro and then wrote down what changed in the attack, the sustain, and the aftertone. Dara's process is iterative. Try, listen, adjust, and always anchored in respect for lineage.
Now, close your eyes again. Imagine a layered soundscape, the steady rasp of a plane, a roneat key knocked softly to check pitch, a bamboo-flute's breath carrying across a river breeze. These are the beds we recorded in ambisonic mixes. Listen for the way each texture frames a voice, how the flute's air sits above the wooden knocks.
After that interlude, I met Chetra, a musician who tunes a small ensemble before a village performance. He closed his eyes as he adjusted the tro and the roneat, listening for tiny beats between strings. Those beats tell you when two notes are slightly apart and need nudging. He described tuning as a conversation with the instrument and with the place we'll play in. Humidity, the audience, even the angle of the sun can change what the instrument asks for.
Chetra showed me how makers and musicians form networks. If a tritro needs a new sound post or a roneat a refiled key, players call their maker or a repair cooperative rather than trying a risky DIY. That social network keeps instruments alive. We also asked all participants about permissions for recordings. Performers were paid and credited, and we agreed not to publish detailed build steps that could be misused.
Practical takeaway time. If you want to visit a maker or commission an instrument, go through vetted cooperatives or cultural centers. Ask permission before recording or photographing. Offer fair payment up front, and respect workshop rhythms. Makers often work early mornings or late afternoons. If you're commissioning, allow time for finish and settling, and ask if the maker offers ongoing adjustments rather than expecting perfection on delivery day.
A few short travel tips. Don't ask for exact workshop addresses on social posts. That can invite unmediated visits. If you're buying, get a written receipt and a note about materials used. Support local cooperatives and repair networks. They channel money back into apprenticeships. And when you share a clip online, credit the maker and performer. Small acknowledgments matter.
We've tried to avoid romanticizing precarity. Makers told us about market pressures and the satisfaction of a note that finally sings. If you want to help, look for ethical organizations listed in our show notes, cooperatives we vetted, contact points for commissions, and resources on sustainable material sourcing.
Before we close, I asked each person what they hope listeners take away. Lee, the master luthier, tapped a tro's belly and said, "Care for it like you would a child. It learns your voice." Dara, the young maker, said he hopes more players ask, "Who made this?" rather than only, "How much?" Chetra, the musician, smiled and said, "Listen, instruments tell stories if you let them." If you enjoyed this close look at tuned hands, subscribe to Ancient Echoes KH. It helps more Khmer voices be heard. Visit our show notes for the vetted cooperatives, licensing credits, and a short reading list if you want to learn more about instrument stewardship. Thank you to the makers and musicians who shared time and sound with us, and to you, listening. Quiet stones, loud stories. Walk the temples with me next time.